Well, David can tell you.
Well, when you win a show like Westminster, it's become kind of a tradition, but also you don't have anything left to prove. And if you keep going out and competing and get beat, and it happens, because every day is a different day, different judges like different dogs for different reasons. So she has nothing to expose herself to. She's a very young dog. She's only 3 years old. But,
really?
But you know, we want to move these dogs, the great dogs, into our breeding program as well. And you want to always try to produce the next generation,
Okay,
the next
Spice
best
Girl.
dog.
Your life is cut out for you. You will sire a champion.
I think there's also a haircut in her future, too. I think you know, they're not going to keep this kind of tone on her as we roll around in the
so. Yeah, exactly. You know? Generally, what makes the difference for judges? What is it that you think, in the end, puts a dog over the top?
Well, it is a dog show, and as we say in the vernacular, you gotta show. You
gotta be able to show.
That's right. Charisma, attitude, showmanship, and the dogs really have to be the whole package. The judges have to be artists. They have to understand the artistic approach to judging dogs. They have to understand the engineering approach too. You know, angles and lengths and measurements and things. But you also have to be able to see the dog in the ring, and imagine it doing the things it was bred to do, and that it's capable of doing that. You know, nowadays, dogs don't always get to do exactly what they were bred to do. We just don't, they're bred more for companionship than serving man. So the judge has to know what they were bred to do and be able to picture them doing that.
Yeah. Who are the judges?
She's happy where she is with me all the time. Then she got all the tensions.
Why do you love dogs so much? How'd you get to that love affair?
Well, this is a little short story, but I was only child, and my mother passed away. I was very young, and the father had to work. Then I'm alone at home. Then my father gave me 2 dogs. I was young, 5 years old. Since then, dog is my best friend.
Yeah.
Let's get into this business.
What do you think is the most important thing you understand about dogs?
Their minds.
Their minds?
Yeah.
How they think?
Yeah. You can tell what they think.
Feel.
Yeah. And you gotta know, if you, especially showing dogs, you gotta know what they think, what they want.
You gotta read the dog.
Yes,
understand
I can read their minds.
And vice versa, the dog has to be able to read your your actions, what you want, what you're.
Yes.
And you do that just by.
You cannot understand just overnight. You have to spend with dog for many, many, many years, and you learn that way.
Now, next year, you start over with a new dog.
Yes.
Do you know what kind of dog? You already picked this dog
I'm
out?
sure that I'm gonna do another poodles, probably, because I doing showing poodle there at Westminster for the last 23 years, and
so it'll be a poodle.
This is my challenge.
Now, can I just hold for a second?
Sure.
What's the sound you make? Oh.
The call her name is Spice.
Spice. Spice. Beautiful dog.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much.
Wonderful story. Wonderful for his beliefs. What'd you write about, my friend?
I was asked to write about the internet bubble and the degree to which it was an expression of that pursuit of happiness, and to me it seemed entirely that. And
because it was about independence and freedom and...
Well, but it was about this particularly American quest, which is this simultaneous quest for enlightenment and utopianism and all that, combined with the commercial impulse to get rich and to make something. And the thing about the internet bubble, I mean, obviously there were mixed motives all the way around. Some people just wanted to get rich, some people just wanted to change the world. But a lot of people involved in that project had this strange American combination of idealism and the will to make $1 zillion. And that, to me, was very American and very interesting.
Yeah. Was there a lot of emphasis on pursuit? And the idea that happiness mainly comes from the pursuit rather than the end?
And I thought it was interesting, Lance Armstrong was the one biblical type essay where he said that when he's suffering on the bike, that's when he's happiest.
Yeah,
That was the only one.
he came here for an hour conversation, believes that without having lived through cancer, he would never have won the Tour de France. It somehow taught him something. You can't identify with suffering and pain. And
well, I mean, everybody can identify with it, but I think that, I mean, it's one thing to embrace your pain, but let's not go too far and bury it.
But pursuit is it. I mean,
yeah, pursuit is it.
we are dogs barking at the car, and speaking for myself, I don't want to catch the car. You know, I want it to zoom off and then be excited by the next car that comes along and go bark at it.
Yeah, because there's no end in it for you.
No,
you know, just getting...
And you don't know where the pursuit will lead you. In my experience, the pursuit of happiness leads you in all kinds of places you didn't start out going.
Yeah. What do we know about Jefferson's choice? I mean, if Jefferson, when he thought about happiness?
We're not sure. That's
Yeah.
the notion that they came up to they found a logical fallacy in Locke. Hard to believe. You know, maybe they were just sitting there having some port, you know, in Philadelphia.
That was my backup theory.
Which was your backup theory?
My backup theory was, I proposed Pilon's theory, which I think is very sensible, but my backup theory was that they were just happy. You know, the Jeffersons had Sally Hemings up for the weekend,
Right.
that Franklin had gotten a printing contract for the Independence, and Adams was drinking. And they were happy guys. And so they stuck it in. So that's a possibility, too.
Yeah. Has happiness changed after September 11th? The definition or the pursuit of happiness? Or is it seen differently?
I think it's become more introverted. I really do. I think...
Individually introverted?
Yes. Some of the essays were written before, some of them after, and what we found was that the ones that were written after, people really were talking more about family,
Yeah.
you know, being with their grandchildren, doing the kind of quiet work they like doing, like writing. Before, it was really about achievement and things like that. There was a very interesting shift that took place.
I think it's clear that there's also, in the last several months, a price for happiness, and the pursuit of happiness on this grand, national, global scale, it doesn't necessarily come easily or cheaply.
Also, I think in the wake of the terrorist attacks, people got less confused about the difference between pleasure and happiness. I think when you're really happy, as the nation was a year ago, or maybe if we go back a little further when the bubble was in, you really do mix up pleasure and happiness. And it's only in the wake of something bad happening that you realize that the things that make you most happy, hard work and the family, which is incredibly annoying, and hard work that's incredibly annoying, and the actual building of something and making of things, produce a more profound happiness than just getting stinking and, you know, running away for a dirty weekend in the Bahamas.
The awful tragedy may be we only know happiness in retrospect. You mentioned that.
Yeah.
That looking back before September 11th, we think, boy, things were pretty nice. How come we didn't appreciate it at the time?
Call no man happy until he is dead, and then what do you call him? You know?
But there are frequently people who come to terminal illness, and they find out, and they often write and talk about this, you know, that they realize that the thing that brought them the most happiness was family. And they only realize that as they near the inescapable finality of death.
And we mustn't discount the idea that they might be fibbing, either. Because we've all had families.
Why do you think that?
There are no atheists or family haters in foxholes.
I suppose not.
Oh, so in other words, if you're on your last breath, then you might
What
think
are you
saying,
going to say? Yes.
you know,
The one thing that really
you can't
brought
say
me misery.
you can't if you're going away. You don't want to say, "Damn it, I wish I'd spent more time at the office," or do you?
And yet it may be the truth.
No, but it does seem to me that people, all of us, I mean, I think of myself as essentially very, very happy in lots of ways, and lucky in lots of ways. I mean, because life has been good to me, you know, because of health and family and doing what you love to do. On the other hand, I wonder how many people, you know, simply feel like that they are just making it, you know, that are just moving along, and it's not unhappy, but there is not somebody who gets up every morning saying, wow, you know.
Well, we hate those people. Let's
who get up and say, wow.
Say, wow, aren't I happy? But I think...
No, not wow, not happy, but I'm excited about what this day is going to bring.
Well, and that's...
Wow sounds a little bit like a...
Somebody who's taking too many antidepressants.
Exactly right.
We really can't forget, and what the interesting thing about this issue is, I think, is the pursuit. we sort of forget about the pursuit of. It's just happiness, which may involve sitting with a beer in front of the television, you know, and that's a sort of static condition rather than this pursuit, which is this nervous American striving.
Yeah. Well, I wonder for Bill Belichick, for example, the coach of the New England Patriots, whether his happiest moment came as he was preparing for the strategy of defeating St. Louis, or whether it came when he watched that field goal being made, you know?
Is that happiness or is that joy?
What's the difference?
I'm not sure.
I found when I started to look at this and look up what people had written about happiness, that you're in a very nebulous area, and that the great philosophers are of darn little help with this. Basically, what I found is that no one knows it except retrospectively. Yeah. That's the first thing. But I think you bring up a very good point. I think what that being engaged, feeling that you're doing something important, why is World War II? We've got a whole generation beginning to go now, but our parents' generation will look back on World War II with this wonderful sort of misty nostalgia for millions of people getting killed, you know, and the world almost being lost to Nazis and Tojo. And I would puzzle over that, especially when I was a teenager. I think, what are they talking about? Vietnam War was going on for me. I wasn't seeing any, you know, the Army was trying to send me places, you know, where I didn't want to go, to shoot people I hadn't even met, you know, and my friends are being dragged off. The whole thing didn't look, why was World War II so much fun? The feeling that you're engaged, that you're part of something larger than yourself, that you're engaged in something really important, not to mention a little bit of adventure and truly understanding that you've got to live a bit for today because you don't know what is going to fall out of the sky tomorrow, led them to what for many, many people in our parents' generation were the happiest years of their lives.
Did children change anything for you? I mean, you have...
Well, you know, as they do, everything.
Okay, but then, but I don't have children, so a lot of my friends say, you know, the thing that makes me happiest is watching these kids grow up.
You can't believe that you miss, I mean bitterly miss, a person who left to her own devices would spend 22 hours of the day watching The Little Mermaid.
Say that again?
You miss this person. I have a...
I see, yeah.
It's 4 now. And
the monomania of babies.
Yes, I mean, you think, I mean, what she does, what she says, is not all that interesting. As a friend, she would be tedious and wouldn't be able to go get a drink anywhere legally. You love them so much, and you miss every little thing.
But then does that bring you the ultimate happiness, or does some recognition for something you have done professionally bring you the ultimate happiness?
Can't say. I really do hold with the idea that you only know retrospectively.
Or that there's not necessarily a choice there. You can't measure. You can't measure the difference in those two things. How about you, Michael?
Well, I think, any regrets?
No, well, yeah, first regrets, and then second, what brings you the ultimate happiness?
Yeah.
But then again...
Mine are just...
You chose the wrong answer.
Yeah, that's always a problem. I think mine are just the opposite of these two guys, especially PJ. I was a good suburban kid. I think I didn't take enough risks early on. I remember reading...
drugs. Read drugs.
I was one of those classic kids that was born just at the end of, you know, I teenage just at the end of the 60s. So all the older brothers and sisters were having a good time. I remember reading National Lampoon, reading your stuff and thinking, boy, these guys think they're having a really great time. How come I'm not? I'm sitting out here in suburbia going to high school. So I think I would have taken a lot more risks earlier on. And I think in terms of happiness, I think I can name one time when I was happy. I bet you can too. When I saw my first child. For the very first time.
I can't speak to that, but everybody says that.
It's amazing.
Is that true, Kurt?
It is, and there's a clarity, an absolute clarity. You know, I will give my life for this being that one doesn't. I have not experienced in any other part of my life.
Yeah. You also find out that happiness and fear are not mutually exclusive.
No.
So then it would seem to me that if that's true, PJ, that the notion of those people who sort of say the best happiness I had was with my family, in the end, they're not lying. That's true.
Depends. I'm always a little, I want to be a little careful because, again, it's one of those things that what else would people say, you know, in extremis.
Well, and there's that contemporary excuse, whether you're an Enron executive or whatever you are, that I'm leaving to spend more time with my family, which has sort of debased that as currency.
Whenever I hear that, I says, that even me becomes cynical.
Also, that happiness is pretty evanescent, too. I mean, You look at the baby and you go, okay, now I know where I fit in the universe. And then about 4 minutes later, the baby starts screaming and everything just goes off the rails. Yeah. You don't know how to change diapers. It's just chaos. And then happiness disappears for about 5 years.
A maximum feeling of inadequacy.
Yeah.
You wrote something very personal, though, about your late father.
Yeah. I felt that happiness, at least in my family, because my family tends to be somewhat entrepreneurial, we're a Silicon Valley family, that it was about having control over your own life. And for a long time, really, for about 30 years, we've had the sense that we were in control of our lives, that there weren't any great outside threats, that whatever we did with our lives, we did by ourselves. We were our own creations. And I think September 11th snapped us right back.
Yeah.
And I wrote about my father because I felt that he had lived through different periods where he had that freedom and then was reminded it wasn't there. I mean, he was in a B-17 in World War II, but then he was a spy in the 1950s. But he was down in the basement of OSI headquarters during the Cuban Missile Crisis. So he watched the world suddenly just go crazy and realize he was completely helpless. But then he moved to Silicon Valley, where you could make your own life. You could start companies. You know, the neighborhood kids, wasn't jobs just around the corner, started Apple. Right. And you had the sense, once again, you were in control of your life. And I related it to the Norden bomb site. As it happened, I bought a Norden bomb site on eBay, just for fun. And I realized that my father, going on bombing runs in World War II, would set that thing on the target. It was a computer, and he'd take his hands off. And from that point on, it flew.
Been high in the Rockies under evergreens. But I know what I need, and I don't want to waste more time. I'm in a New York state of mind. I'm just taking a Greyhound on Dodging River line. I'm in a New York, New York.
Five nines, 5/8. Room left for Plashenko, room left for maybe another skater, but that program is going to be so tough to beat. He's skated this program 3 times clean this year, but Plashenko has gotten him in the short.
First of the medal favorites to skate. And next we go to Takeshi Honda of Japan, 20 years old. In his second Olympics, he was 15th in Nagano. No Japanese man has ever won an Olympic figure skating medal. That skate by Yagudin puts him into first place. American Michael Weiss in the tough spot of skating first of all. First of 29, currently third. Honda, who trains, as you see, in Ontario, Canada. 5th at the World Championships last year. He doesn't enjoy the short program. He calls it too restrictive. He prefers the free skate. Don Quixote, his music. He too is planning a quad triple combination.
One of the most gifted jumpers I've ever seen. Just so natural. When he gets into his rhythm, everything is just huge and easy and effortless. A lot of speed going into this quad toe, triple toe. Quad toe, triple toe. Let the games begin. Wow.